Yadier Molina wants to be the Cardinals manager. Ryan Helsley might be staying. All kinds of stuff to talk about today on Locked On Cardinals.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Hafferin, and I am your host for Locked On Cardinals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. You can follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio. You can also follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. I do want to thank those of you who make Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. We're also available on YouTube. Please stop on by if you haven't already. Like, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you don't miss a single episode, because this is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode being brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So last year at this time, the Cardinals made the announcement that Yadier Molina had rejoined the team, or I should say the organization, not really the team, but the organization, as a special assistant to President of Baseball Operations, John Mozeliak. And it was a happy moment for fans, if you remember, who had seen this team plummet to an abysmal season in 2023. Didn't go to the playoffs, losing record. And this was all in the first season without number 4 behind the plate, which, you know, we realized he had a whole lot to do with what was going on, which made the St. Louis Cardinals a successful franchise. You take him away from the equation and things went down the toilet real fast. I myself pondered whether or not Yadi was, simply coming in when they made this hire. Was he coming in because he wanted to be the manager in waiting if and when Ali Marmol was replaced following the 2024 season, when his contract was set to be, expired, to be done? At the winter warmup, I remember I was like second row, and Mo comes out, and he's like, "Hey, you guys excited to have Yadi back?" And everybody was like, "Oh, yeah, we were all freezing, like it was freezing in Ballpark Village that day. Like we were across the street, and I just remember being so cold that day. And but we were excited. It's just it was in the morning and we're cold, and I don't think we gave the enthusiasm that I think Mo was expecting from us. But everybody was still down because of this crappy season that the Cardinals had just come off of, and we weren't really sure what Yadi was going to do. Like we didn't know what the role really was. But of course, we were happy to see, or at least we thought we were going to see Yadier Molina back with the team. Chance to have one of the most influential guys for this franchise over the past 2 decades back in the fold to kind of help restore the Cardinal way. And for some, it was a sign that the team was, going to move on from Ali after the bad year, and that Yadi would be the next manager eventually. Things took a turn in the spring. If you remember, Mo doubles down on his hiring of Ali Marmol. Following the firing of Mike Shildt, extends Marmol's contract through 2026, and that kind of left a lot of us confused and scratching our heads a little bit, because we're like, okay, wait a minute. So we had a good year with Yadi. They take Yadi and Albert away, and we have a terrible year, and now we're just going to extend him? That was the thought process, that he's earned it somehow. We found out that John Mozeliak didn't want to set Ali up to be the lame duck manager going into the 2024 season if things weren't going so well, and didn't want people like, gosh, why are we have him fire him already? He was trying to avoid that, so he extended him instead. But he wanted to show his faith in Ali, which that was cool. It was one very catastrophic season, and didn't put all the burden on Ali. It wasn't like that Mo just kind of left him out there like, well, if he had done this and this, he would have been better. No, he took his share of the blame of how bad things were. And, they were just hoping 2024 would be a better season. And it was. So, at one side of it, you're like, well, I think that's really cool of Mo that is like, hey, We believe in you. We have faith in you. And this is what we're going to do. On the other hand, some people felt that this extension that Ali got kind of gave the staff and him a free pass for all of the stuff that went wrong in 2023. And many people felt, and I thought this was what they were going to do too, was that they were going to give him 2024 to prove to everybody that the previous year it was just a fluke and he could earn an extension by doing things the right way and showing that he can be a good manager at the major league level. And he would earn the extension by having a successful year. And then as time went on, we never saw Yadi. And we were told that he'd be there in the spring when the game started. So we were all excited about that. That never happened. And then we started getting word that he had to attend to things that were going on in his native Puerto Rico. And after all that was said and done throughout the year, we never saw Yadier Molina. Never saw him around the team at all. Not once. And there was obviously situations this past year that it would have been nice to have a Yadier Molina, specifically when Wilson Contreras goes down. You've got Pedro Pages, you got Ivan Herrera. Could have used a little guidance from somebody who's going to be a Hall of Famer, not around to help out one little bit. Was he upset that Ali got the extension? That was something that, we kicked around a little bit, maybe. But it's clear that he does want to be a manager in the major leagues at some point. And now we've gotten word from his brother Benji Molina that he wants to be the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals specifically at some point. Benji was on the morning after show on 101 ESPN this week and said that Yadi doesn't want to go anywhere else. I'll tell you that right now, but he's not shutting the doors either. If St. Louis doesn't offer him a job for whatever reason, he's not closing the doors on any team. He would love to come here and manage, but if it doesn't happen, hey, somebody else will give him a job. And I said this from the beginning. If you do remember, every day you'll probably remember this conversation that I had with you, that if Yadi wanted the job, didn't get it for whatever reason, and then ended up going someplace else and becoming a successful manager, what would the reaction of Cardinal Nation be? Because I believe they might show up with lit torches and pitchforks down at 700 Clark Avenue and attack whomever it was that is going to be in charge at the time and made that decision. Fans would never forgive them, would they? Like, first off, you don't want to see Yadier Molina in any other uniform ever. Like, it's going to be weird if it happens. We've seen people move on and have to wear new uniforms. Losing Albert Pujols was obviously very, very weird. But it's different with Yadi for some reason, like, because he never left. And if he ends up moving on somewhere else, heaven forbid he goes to some place that is kind of a rival of the Cardinals and ends up being a very good manager, I mean, the reaction is going to be awful. It's going to be awful. Our guy Thomas Govain over at RedbirdRants.com wrote something about this the other day and mentioned that apparently Martin Kilcoyne from 101 ESPN, one of the hosts on the show, asked Benji if Yadi would be willing to just be a coach, and does he necessarily have to be the manager? Would he come on board as a coach? And Benji emphasized that Yadi wants to be a manager. He has no intentions of joining a staff as some sort of coach. Not a bench coach, not an assistant coach. That's not what he's looking for. He wants to be a manager. And I don't blame him. I mean, if you have your heart set on something, why would you settle for anything less? He's already put in some time as a manager of Puerto Rico and in different leagues in Puerto Rico and the Dominican, and has done quite well. The other thing that is worth noting is that Benji said Yadi would likely wait until after his son graduated before accepting a full-time gig. And that is still 2 years away. So it gives us time to kind of let this reset sink in a little bit, see how things are going and feel things out, if that's indeed the timeline we're working with here. But it does kind of line up nicely that, Mo would be gone by this point. Chaim Bloom would now be in charge. Ali's contract would be coming up, and Yadi would be ready to take over, if that's the direction they wanted to go. But it's kind of interesting. And, I think it's great that Yadi does want to be a manager, and he's got his heart set on being the manager of the St. Louis Cardinals. It seems to kind of make more sense why he wasn't around at all last year. I mean, even if you've got things that are going on in your hometown, whether it's family and stuff like that, it was just a little surprising considering how long we knew about this job with Yadi that we just never saw, like ever saw him at all. So seems to make a little more sense now why he was absent the whole time. And I kind of relate things to what like what the Blues just did. All right. They had Drew Bannister, who took over for Craig Berube, who got canned despite winning the organization's only Stanley Cup. But then Jim Montgomery becomes available, a guy that obviously had been with the coaching staff for the Blues. And GM Doug Armstrong, he didn't waste any time. He was just like, as soon as Monty got fired from the Bruins, I'm sure he was on the horn with him like, look, we love you and we would love for you to be in charge. Things aren't working out so great here. We would love to have you in charge. What would it take? They come to an agreement on this 5-year deal, and just like that, Bannister's out. There's no hesitation. Bannister is out. Thank you. Pat on the back. Great job. Appreciate you taking over. Didn't work out. And in comes Monty. And the Blues are now, 4-0-1 since the move. They've just rejuvenated the entire team. It looks like a brand new team out there. And sometimes there's just a fit. Sometimes there's just the right guy that just fits and just gels with everything that's involved. And I think most fans would agree that out of anybody who wants to be a manager right now, and obviously Albert Pujols appears to want to do some managing at some point, but I think if you had to choose between the two, Yadi would be the guy that you're like, I kind of want Yadi. I kind of want Yadi to be in charge. He just seems like the right guy for a managerial job. He's got, the fire. He knows what he's doing. He's basically been a manager coach his entire career behind home plate. And if he's available and he wants to be your manager, that you're going to find it very difficult to sway anybody to say, well, we already got Ollie. We should hang on to him rather than, hey, move aside, dude. Yadi wants to come in and we love him and he should be our manager. I feel like there's a lot more people that are going to feel like they want Yadi in rather than Ollie. So is that fair to Ollie? Of course not. Of course not. And as ugly as 2023 was, Ollie was the guy in charge in 2022 when they did go to the playoffs. Yes, he had Albert and Goldie and Nato and Yadi and Waino and all these guys. And then this last year, we did see improvement in 2024, despite his two best players, Goldie and Nato, having the worst offensive years of their careers. And from all accounts, always had the blessings and the trust of the team, and certainly from management. Obviously, they believe in him. So, hypothetically, what if in this next year, in 2025, in this restart, the Cardinals win, let's say they win 87 games next year and are right there knocking on the door of the playoffs, but don't quite make it, but they improve again, despite going through a restart or a reset, whatever you want to call it. Would you, if you're in charge, still hand the team over to Yadi, or would you be wanting to keep Ollie around again and let him continue to get better and better? What if they win 90 games? What if they win 90 games next year and get a wild card spot? Would you still move on from Ollie? What would he have to do to have you keep him over Yadier Molina outside of winning, a World Series? Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the last thing. If he doesn't do that, you're moving on from him. Maybe that's how you feel. Is there anything that would stop you from replacing Ollie with Yadi in 2026? You're in charge. Let me know in the comment section below, and we can discuss it. Personally, if you feel that Yadi is the right guy, similar to the way Army felt that Jim Montgomery was the right guy, I would take that approach and not let the opportunity pass you by for him to go sign with somebody else. I just wouldn't let it happen. But that's just me. That's just me. Updates on the Ryan Helsley trade market. Is he not going to get traded now? Now it seems like maybe he's not as available as we thought. We'll talk about it next on Locked On Cardinals. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL, and it's all in one place. Tough loss for my Packers on Thursday night. Unable to punch it in late in the red zone. Maybe a shady flag there at the end. But, the Lions do what good teams do. They take advantage of things like that, and they win the ball game. But, you could kind of sense the switch in the second quarter when the Packers started running the ball a little more. And that's when, if you had a hunch that Josh Jacobs might have a good game, that's when it started to kick in for real, right? 3 more tutties for the Green Bay running back. He's got 7 in his last 3 games, 11 rushing touchdowns on the season, 1 off his career high. The dude is having a monster season. And if you were feeling that hunch in the middle of the game, that's when you hop on to the FanDuel Sportsbook app, and you can check out the latest stats. You can view the live play-by-play and so much more right there on the same place where you place your bets. And that way you don't miss out on taking advantage of a hunch. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. Leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter, X, anytime you want. That feedback always welcome and encouraged. Ryan Helsley appears to be a nice trade chip for the Cardinals, right? I mean, we've talked about this enough, but Ken Rosenthal over at The Athletic released an article with, it's one of those what he's hearing from around the league. Obviously he's very in tune with everything that's happening. And he says that teams talking to the Cardinals about Ryan Helsley are under the impression that they are now going to hold on to him, and that John Mozeliak is backing up that feeling, saying it's something we will always remain open-minded to, but our plan is to have him be part of our organization. Rosenthal goes on to talk about how Ryan Helsley had this amazing year, which we all know about, and how good he was. And he points out something that I have said before, that his trade value, it's going to diminish if the Cardinals wait until the trade deadline to move him. Like, his trade value is the highest it will ever be right now. Right now. A full season of a player is more valuable than 2 months, which is what other teams would be getting if you wait till the trade deadline to move him. And then he's going to be a free agent. He points out, particularly when any team that acquires Helsley during the offseason would then also gain the opportunity to extend him a qualifying offer and receive draft pick compensation if he departed. He reminds us all that players traded in the middle of the season are not eligible for qualifying offers. The potential for an acquiring team to give Helsley a QO would enable the Cardinals to ask more for him now than they might get at the deadline. On the other hand, relievers are always in demand, and the return at the deadline might be comparable to what the Cardinals would receive this winter, assuming Helsley stays healthy. And that's a big assumption, because over the years, Ryan Helsley hasn't always been able to maintain his health. Things have happened, and I've also said, as amazing as this last year was, are we sure he's going to be able to match that again? Or are we that positive that things aren't going to regress just some, which will bring down his trade value even more? So again, the Cardinals, hey, they could be just testing the market. Maybe they haven't gotten the offers they were hoping for, so that's why they're putting out this vibe that they will just keep Ryan Helsley, which, again, is their right to do. They do not have to trade any of these guys. They're not behind an 8 ball here. I have to trade Arenado or this team is screwed and we're going to collapse. Same goes with Helsley. It doesn't have to happen and that everything's screwed up. That's not the case. But if they do want their value to be at its highest, and with the winter meeting starting on Monday, maybe things kick into gear a little bit more. Maybe it's not as cut and dry as we think at the moment. I just hope. Here's my thing. I just hope they're not like just spinning their wheels, okay? Because that's really what I don't want. The idea was like, we've made a decision, and we are going to go with the younger guys, and we're going to move on from the high-priced talent, and we're going to trade some guys away, and this is the plan, and we're going for it. And so far, that's not really happened. All they've done so far is let free agents walk. Goldschmidt, Gibson, Lynn, Kittredge, Middleton. They haven't made any real tough decisions so far, at least in my eyes. And if they don't end up making any trades with guys like Helsley or Arenado, they could net you some valuable prospects. Then we're just kind of in the same spot we were just in. You're just not paying these old guys that were here. So it doesn't feel quite as aggressive as a direction. It's kind of like, well, okay, Sonny Gray didn't want to leave. Wilson Contreras didn't want to leave. They got no trade clauses. That's their right. So there's not much you could do about that. But I don't know. That's my biggest fear. It's not that this going younger thing would not work, because I have full faith that the Cardinals are putting together the type of player development that will get the best out of these guys. They're doing everything they can. I trust that process for it. But I feel like I just don't want them to just spin their wheels again. I'm like, well, let's run it back. Because right now it kind of feels like we're just going to run it back a little bit. And that's not exactly what I was hoping for. But, it's the other side of it too. It's not like keeping Helsley is holding anybody back. It's not like there's some super closer prospect coming up to the Cardinal system that it's like, well, we were going to let him pitch, but I guess we're not anymore. It's at least that's not the case. Keeping Helsley's not stopping somebody else from being good. There isn't this like one guy who's ready to step in that you 100% trust to lock things down in a ninth inning. You like Liberatore and Romero and Fernandez where they are right now in your bullpen. Like I'm very pleased with where they are. None of them scream closer by any means, right? Like none of them you're like, hand the ball off, and they're going to get you through it, no problem. And none of them feel that way. They're just good pitchers, right? Good bullpen pitchers. So I see both sides of this, and if the deals aren't up to par, then I guess there's really no need to just give him away. So, but hopefully something will happen where either get a monster deal, and we're able to work some things out here. That's really my hope. It's not that we bring all these dudes back again. Let's get into some news from around the league next, including the Guardians got their ace back under contract. How about that? We'll talk about it next on Locked On Cardinals. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen today. If your second listen, check out my guy Sully with Locked On MLB, bringing you a daily blend of humor and baseball. Got you covered this entire offseason for everything around the league, even the Cardinals. We will talk about them as well. So if they do make a big trade, I'm sure I'll jump on there with Sully and we'll have a nice conversation, and he'll make fun of us for stupid trades that we've made in the past, but that's what he does. Find Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. So winter meetings, again, are going to begin on Monday. We will have a preview of things for the Cardinals coming up either on Sunday or on Monday, but you've had a little bit of action around the league leading into things when they start in Dallas on Monday. The Juan Soto sweepstakes, obviously, on the top of everybody's mind in Major League Baseball. The discussions are that it is going to get really, 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 really expensive. I know we all thought, hey, $500 million, maybe $600, but according to MLB Network insider John Heyman in his article for the New York Post, at least 4 teams, the Yankees, Mets, Red Sox, and Blue Jays, are in the neighborhood of $700 million for Juan Soto, for one guy who plays one position. Like, that's crazy, dude. That is crazy to me. Per Heyman, the Dodgers are believed to be behind in the bidding, but haven't been eliminated from the group of finalists yet. But in my eyes, after signing Snell, extending Edman, it seems like the Dodgers are already kind of moving on with other plans. Not like they're in a desperation need for another person to join the team on the offensive side of things. Obviously, the Roki Sasaki stuff is coming up. He is expected to be posted this week, which would begin his 45-day window for teams to sign him. Heyman says that the Dodgers continue to be the favorites on that, but there are other teams, including the Padres, that have a shot. which, there are so far when I'm around talking to people, there are two sides with this. There's the one side that's like, this is stupid. The Dodgers shouldn't be able to sign all these guys and we should, things should be more balanced. And then there's like, I want to see the Dodgers get Soto and Sasaki and just watch it all burn. Watch everybody get so upset and mad at Major League Baseball. Yeah. I want it to be balanced. I just want it to be a fun league. And you hate seeing it where one team's kind of like a monopoly, but rules don't stop them from doing it. And if they want to, these other teams could have done it too if they wanted to, but they just don't have the pull. They're not the Dodgers. The Cardinals have not been brought up at all as any of the teams who would be in the running for Sasaki, despite him not costing anything close to what Yoshinobu Yamamoto cost last year coming over. But if Sasaki doesn't want to come to St. Louis, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. If he's got his mindset on joining a big market team, preferably on the West Coast, that is the exact opposite of what the St. Louis Cardinals are. They are not a big market team, and they are in the Midwest. So not expected to sign until the 2025 International Amateur signing period begins on January 15th. So from now until then, pure speculation about what's going to happen with Sasaki. But it just seems like, as much as anybody's been talking about, it's all leaning towards some West Coast teams. I know Darvish has some serious pull with players coming over from Japan. So that makes sense that the Padres would be right there for him. And again, it doesn't cost like the Yamamoto contract. So any of these teams out there have if he wants to be West Coast and that's the only place he'll go, they all have a chance. They all have a chance at it. As far as teams closer to home in the division, there is some momentum that the Cubs will be trading Seiya Suzuki or former NL MVP Cody Bellinger. MLB Network insider Joel Sherman reported to the New York Post that the Cubs are determined to move either of them, at least one of them, as the team would like to use the money owed to those big bats next season elsewhere on the roster. They also they had signed Matthew Boyd already. So I'm sure some of these starting pitchers that are out there, Max Fried, Corbin Burns, I'm sure those are some names that they would love to chit chat with and have some money to spend on. Bellinger exercised his player option. He's going to make $27.5 million this year. Suzuki's got 2 years, $36 million remaining on his 5-year deal. He's got a no trade clause though. So he gets to say where he wants to go. Maybe he'll go to LA. I don't think they're getting Teoscar Hernandez back, so maybe he'll go to LA. That just make it Team Japan over there. And someone the Cardinals have been linked to over the years is going to return to the Cleveland Guardians. Shane Bieber has agreed on a 1-year, $10 million deal with the Guardians for 2025. It also includes a $16 million player option for 2026 and a $4 million buyout. Had Tommy John surgery this past year. Was having a very good year to start the season, and then the elbow gave out and not expected back until the middle of next season. I know that most of us believe that Tommy John surgery is no big deal anymore and that, hey, you come back and everything's fine. There's always a risk. But the reports are that Bieber never wanted to leave Cleveland. That's where he loves it. So it makes sense. It's a good deal for both people involved. The Mets also agreed to terms on a 3-year, $38 million deal with right-hander Clay Holmes, who used to be the closer for the Yankees. The Yankees closer as of right now. Luke Weaver, the former Cardinal first-round pick. The Mets are not going to use him as reliever, though. The reports are that he's going to get switched out and become a starter now. They're going to convert him to the rotation, which is something that our friend Thomas Govain, again at RedbirdRants.com, has brought up about Ryan Helsley. Should the Cardinals start tinkering with him and perhaps put him into the starting rotation instead of keeping him as the closer? He brings up the idea that the Cardinals should extend him. If they're not going to trade him now, then just extend him, turn him into a starter, and see where you can go from that. And that would hopefully avoid all the issues that the Cardinals had with Jordan Hicks, where they were like, we like him as a reliever. We kind of want to try him as a closer because he throws so hard, but then he wants to be a starter, and it was just kind of a mess. They never had a direction, like where they're like, this is it. This is all we're doing. It never got to that. And then, of course, he goes to the Giants as a free agent after getting traded to Toronto. Wasn't so bad as a starter with the Giants. So, and he finally got to be in a starting rotation full time. Personally, I'm not trying to mess with Ryan Helsley. The guy's at the top of his game, considered one of the top closers in all of baseball, got the award as the top closer in the NL. I don't know why at this point of his career, we're not talking about a 26, 27-year-old guy. We're talking about a guy in his early 30s. Why we're going to mess with him now? I don't know why that would be something that people want to do. I don't want to do it. I have no interest in that. You've got prospects like Tink Hens, Quinn Matthews, Tekoa Roby, and a group of other guys that seemingly are ready to step up, win the contracts of, Eric Fetty and Miles Michaelis and Steven Matz, if they're still around when those expire, and they're ready to slide right in there with Sonny Gray. So I'm just not as keen on the idea as he is, but check out the article and, think about it. See what you think about it for yourself. Thank you again for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, give us a follow on Twitter X at @LO_Cardinals and to JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already, and help our channel and love for the St. Louis Cardinals grow. You guys are the best fans in baseball for a reason. I'll see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.